Ooh, this is great clickbait, isn't it? Is Mary Bennet autistic? Watch and find out. Or not.
Because you get all this argument over, like, is Mary Bennet autistic? Not Mary Bennet is autistic. What does that mean?
I mean, what do you think? Is she? Let me know in the comments below. Actually, don't do that. As much as the YouTube algorithm loves it when you flood the comment section with your opinions, whenever I post a video with a question in the title...
But for real, is Mary Bennet autistic though?
The majority of the comments will just be people answering that question without any reference to the actual video. With this one, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to give your 2 cents on the question, is Mary Bennet autistic? Not just yet anyway. Promise you'll watch at least... Look, I don't need you to watch the whole video. Statistically, you won't anyway. But give it maybe 7 minutes of your time before you inevitably tell me in the comments whether you think Mary Bennet is autistic or not. Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and I'm not autistic. I feel like that should be out there right from the start. Throughout this video we'll also hear from Bill.
Hi, I'm Bill and welcome to the Retro Sofa. I talk about retro video games like Claudia does what with her retro books.
And from his mother Carolyn.
My name is Carolyn. I have a lot of experience working with people on the autistic spectrum.
So Bill, what qualifies you to talk about, Pride and Prejudice?
About Pride and Prejudice? I married someone who knows about it. So is Mary Bennet autistic?
That's a difficult one.
Yep. I think Claudia wants you to write her video script for her.
Okay.
I'm autistic too. I didn't say that in the intro. That's why I have a YouTube channel about retro games.
So do stick around for more qualified opinions than mine. The reason I'm making a video on this is because I've noticed that quite a lot of you seem to read Mary Bennet from Jane Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice as autistic. Here's some excerpts from my comment section. Mary is on the spectrum. She does not read social cues. She's hyper-focused on her interests. She monologues about things that she believes are important, but does not get that other people are not interested in them. Her interests are solitary and she is a loner. I imagine she's autistic and probably also asexual, and she'd probably thrive on the daily structure of being a nun. I think she combines all this goodness with being socially inept and unable to read the room. There's an argument, I'm sure somebody somewhere has made it, that Mary, Mr. Darcy and Mr. Collins are all on the autism spectrum. Yes, funny you should mention that. That argument has indeed been made in this book by Phyllis Ferguson Bottomer with the title So Odd a Mixture Along the Autistic Spectrum in Pride and Prejudice. But we'll get to that later in the video. The moment I decided I was going to make a video essay on the question, is Mary Bennet autistic? I knew that there's not really a yes or no answer to that. Mary Bennet isn't real. She's not a historical figure, she's a fictional character. She's not even an important side character in Pride and Prejudice like Jane or Lydia. If Mary wasn't in the book, her absence would have practically no impact on the plot. Speaking of the plot, here's a spoiler warning for you. We're going to discuss Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which I'm guessing about 97% of you have read already. But still, best to be certain. Back to Mary Bennet.
You're putting all the discourse into answering a question that's really kind of irrelevant unless you can define some sort of meaning that goes beyond that. But you never get that far because you're too much on the is she or isn't she question.
Her function in Pride and Prejudice is to be yet another embarrassment to Lizzie. Just like Lydia Bennet, she makes a spectacle of herself in social situations, but in a slightly different way. Just like Mrs. Bennet, she is inappropriate at the dinner table, but in a slightly different way. Just like Mr. Bennet, she comes across as uncaring, which we see in particular when Lydia's scandal is discussed. And yet, despite Mary's position as just one of the large cast of characters that makes up Pride and Prejudice, modern readers have grown to like her not just as a comic relief side character, but also sympathize with her. I'm absolutely no exception. 6 years ago, I made a video with the title In Defense of Mary Bennet. Mary Bennet speaks for all of us when she says, I should infinitely prefer a book when asked to go shopping with her sisters, because girl, I get you, I too would infinitely prefer a book than going shopping with Lydia and Kitty. It's a half serious, half silly, 8-minute unscripted ramble about Mary and why she deserves so much more than the book ever gives her. I talk about her as a neglected middle child and an unwavering nerd who's just fed up with it all. This is, at the time of recording, the 4th most popular video on Spinster's library. Clearly, there's something about Mary. I can't believe I just made that god-awful joke. I sincerely beg your forgiveness. On my channel, I try to discuss classics like any other book because that's what they are. They're not special just because people write theses and video essays about them. They're not above critique and they're not above discussion. They're not above a bit of silliness either. And with Pride and Prejudice specifically, I found that a lot of people are on the same page as me. It's the subject of social media memes, of TikTok comedy, of podcasts, of fan art. It's a 200-year-old book that's become pop culture, and I love that. This means that it gets discussed like pop culture, like any modern piece of media. About 20 years ago, autism had its own pop culture moment. Mark Haddon's 2003 novel, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, was an award-winning bestseller. The first World Autism Awareness Day, organised by the United Nations, was celebrated in 2007. House convinced millions of TV viewers that Hugh Laurie is American, and the concept of Asperger's syndrome, which is a term we've since moved away from in favour of the broader defined autism spectrum, became something your average consumer of media was suddenly aware of. So Odd a Mixture along the autistic spectrum in Pride and Prejudice was published in 2007. And you can tell. Listen to how the author talks about Jane Austen and Pride and Prejudice. In this beloved novel, she created 8 characters on the autistic spectrum, while in her 5 other major works, another dozen at least make their appearance. Austen did not and could not know what she was describing, but she did so with such precise detail that we can recognize and begin to explain what she could only observe and puzzle over. That's quite the confident statement there. Austen created 8 characters in Pride and Prejudice on the autism spectrum. Did she really? Something about this statement, and similar ones that I made throughout the book, made me bristle when I read them. But it wasn't until I asked my mother-in-law about it that I realised what that was.
One can see traits in characters, but I'm not sure that it's helpful to actually offer a definitive diagnosis on the basis of what's in the book. If you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. It's a huge spectrum. It's a question none of us can ever really answer. So having the debate is interesting, but it isn't something that one can conclude. We can't ask Jane Austen, and even if we could, she wouldn't be able to answer the question herself. You can capture a particular character, but you're not going to capture the spectrum.
It's this pathologizing of characteristics as symptoms that perpetuates stereotypes. It's reductive. It's this direct line from Mary has no sense of humor to Mary must be autistic to all autistic people have no sense of humor. Phyllis Ferguson Bottomer does that a lot in her book. Among the characteristics that she collects as evidence for Mary's autism, she lists: she distrusts emotion and values the intellect. She shows little compassion or concern and generally lacks empathy. She doesn't care about how other people see her. All of this put together presents this image of essentially a human robot, which is probably one of the biggest stereotypes about autism as portrayed in modern media.
There is obviously a concern about sort of stereotyping, that people have ideas about what a certain type of person is and diagnoses based on harmful stereotypes that aren't particularly useful or accurate, and then all of us autistic people go, oh, here we are again.
Jane Austen wrote novels that are heavily satirical in nature. And while her characters, even her side characters, are more fleshed out than you'd expect from pure satire, we need to bear in mind that someone like Mary, whose function in the book is to be a counterpart to Elizabeth, to provide comic relief and be an adversary for Lydia and Lizzie to butt heads with. She's not a three-dimensional character. So when we take some of these personality traits and characteristics which are exaggerated for comic effect, and take those as indicators of autism, we are in danger of perpetuating those stereotypes.
Someone socially awkward in the media must be us autistics.
So what would you think makes good representation and what makes bad representation?
Good representation, I feel like it's where you don't just use the negative stereotypes, where you don't just make all of that character's interactions be about their disability, their condition, or just who they are or whatever. You show a more sort of fullness of that character rather than just the negative stereotypes. That's what I'd want, I think, just as an autistic people, is like to represent autistic people as autistic people. This is again the issue that if you want to talk about representation and it be good representation, you need more than a side character, and Mary Bennett's very much a side character who has very little mention in the film? It's a book. Anyway, it's also a film.
It is both, yes. Yeah. However, and this is a big however, there's many people whose understanding of Mary as autistic comes from a much more personal perspective. I'm autistic and have ADHD, and I really think it's fascinating when characters in classic novels exhibit signs of being neurodivergent. There's something comforting about knowing that we've always existed, you know? I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to have lived back then. At best I'd be considered eccentric, and at worst I'd be locked in an asylum. But the point is that people like me existed and have always been part of the human experience. Representation is comforting. Representation is the other side of the coin. Where we see stereotyping as universally harmful, we understand the representation is important.
Like, it's cool that people can see themselves in stories and identify with them, and besides, you want stories to have a greater relevance to the world in which we live, and the world in which we live is a diverse one. So, plus it just makes for better stories, doesn't it? More interesting, different people.
Obviously, autistic people have always been around, despite what certain conspiracy theorists and or right-wing social media grifters want you to believe. There is absolutely real value in having characters in classic fiction that you can relate to, that you can identify with. And Austen's writing really lends itself to that.
What's so excellent about the book is that all of the girls are very, very different characters, and it's very clever the way that it's written. You would be able to identify with any one of them. There's a sister there for everybody.
Her characterizations make her a standout writer, not just in her own Regency period, but in the context of Western literature in general. There's a reason we still find ourselves so attached to her characters 2 centuries later. There's a reason we talk about them as if they are real people. Do you find yourself drawn to or relate to fictional characters who are either explicitly written as autistic or that you interpret that way?
I'm just trying to say how I can say this without coming off really arrogant. I identify very well with characters who are brilliant. So legend in Gladiators.
I think we can all say safely, I was spellbinding up there.
You wish.
Absolutely spellbinding.
No, but okay, so House, right? Thinks in a way that's quite different to the people around him and sees things that other people don't see. I find that with my job as well, that because I'm autistic, I've always looked at things a little bit differently, and that gives me a little bit of a different perspective, which means I'm able to solve a lot of problems that no one else can. That's not to say I'm particularly brilliant. There are things that other people can do that I'm rubbish at, and there are things that other people notice that I should have, a lot of the time. But sort of representation of autistic people obviously is what it is, and growing up with media that really only had autistic people in the autistic savant role, and that is kind of the one that I've looked at more and put more of an expectation on myself that that's what I should be.
So when we ask the question, is Mary Bennett autistic? We need to consider why the answer interests us. Is it for a deeper understanding of the character, or for a deeper understanding of autism? Because I don't think there is a lot of value in taking a fictional character as an example for a very real thing. Maybe you can with a character that's more three-dimensional than Mary and gets more screen time, but with Mary you inevitably come up against the stereotype of the cold-hearted, socially inept nerd. But then there is the flip side. It's important for readers to see themselves in literature, and it's important for readers to see themselves in classics. Because of course Jane Austen knew autistic people. And of course Jane Austen, a genius of observational writing, would have taken inspiration from the people around her. So yes, there are autistic characters in Jane Austen's novels because there were autistic people in Jane Austen's world. To claim that Mary Bennet can't be autistic because Jane Austen had never heard of autism doesn't make any sense. I'm going on about Mary a lot, but this conversation is by no means limited to her. I'm just using her as a convenient example. A lot of people online understand Mr. Darcy as autistic, for example, or Fanny Price from Mansfield Park. So this book, which I talk about in the video, lists 8 characters who are definitely autistic in Pride and Prejudice.
Oh, fine. Mary Bennett,
Yeah.
Mr. Collins,
Yeah.
both of the Bennett parents,
Yes.
Mr. and Mrs. Bennett.
Yes. Holy shit, have you read this?
Catherine de Bourgh, would they count her as?
Yes.
Okay. We have probably now run out of characters that I know.
There's 2 more left. How the fuck did you know this?
If you were going to pick out some characters as being autistic, those are the ones you'd pick. But here is a book by someone who is looking for that.
Yes.
You know, and
Okay.
fun thing, if you're looking for something, you're probably going to find it.
There's 2 more left and you'll definitely guess one of them.
Mr. Darcy?
Yes?
Yeah.
These are not arbitrary diagnoses. There's clearly something autistic Austen fans recognise in Mary or Mr. Darcy or any other literary character. We're not the headcanon police here. You can read Mary Bennet as autistic and be just as right as someone reading her as neurotypical.
That's not to say it isn't fun to diagnose and to guess and to talk about it and to speculate. I don't want to take away people's good time, you know, you crack on.
In the end, it's readers engaging with a fantastic work of literature. And if we learn something about ourselves and our fellow humans along the way, it's a win-win. So there you go. Is Mary Bennet autistic? We're nearly at the end of the video, but don't go away yet, because there will be outtakes from the interviews at the end of this. But first, I want to give my many thanks to Bill and Carolyn for letting me interview them, and to Bill for conducting the interview with his mum the last time he visited her in England. Both of these interviews will be posted completely unedited on my members page, so if you're a member of this channel at the Spinster's librarian level, you can watch and listen to those. You should also subscribe to Bill's channel, The Retro Sofa, where he discusses retro video games. It's like Spinster's library, but with more cat cameos, better background music, and so-called gameplay footage. Links down below if you're that way inclined. And thank you very much for watching. Bye.
Just what I reckon.
Yeah,
off the
well,
top
we're
of-
just speculating, aren't
It's
we?
all just off the top of my head. All of this might be nonsense, and you might have actual experts in the comments going, "No, that's ridiculous. What
Oh,
are
I
you doing?
will. Oh, no.
You haven't lived your life like that."
If there's one thing that you can be certain of, is that there will be experts in the comment section.
Look forward to it. Do your thing.
Okay.
Most of our videos have purring on them. It's called ASMR.
Can there be any harm to diagnosing fictional characters? This is a very serious video.
Wave to the people, Minerva. Wave to the serious video people. Look at the little jelly beans, though. What?
Your mum said...
What do you really think of her?
Your mum said there's a Bennett sister for everyone to identify with. Which Bennett sister are you?
Greg.
No one's gonna get that, Bill.
Sorry, Balthazar.
Bill.
Lizzie 4, A New Hope.
Can you name the 5 Bennett sisters?
Lizzie.
That's 1.
Lizzie 2.
Come on, try.
The Return of Lizzie. Lizzie 4, A New Hope. No, okay, so you've got Lizzie, you've got Mary. Is there a Charlotte?
Yeah, but she's not a sister.
Oh, okay. No, yeah, you're right, she's not. There's a Linda.
Linda.
No, there isn't.
Watch too much The Trade.
Lydia.
Lydia. Okay, that's 3. That's really good.
Balthazar?
Balthazar Bennett.
No, okay, so it's Lizzie, there's Mary, there's Lydia, there's... who's the silly one?
Lydia.
Damn. Who's the one that's bad at everything?
Mary. There's the beautiful one.
Yeah, the old one. Whose name is Greg. I don't know, do I? No, I don't know. I mean, probably Elizabeth, because she's the main character and so am I.